Okay guys, welcome back to another episode of our Santa or Christmas game. Today we are going to be doing things a little bit different. Well, not really. We're not really going to be coding much, but rather we need to fix a few things in this game because it's kind of a mess, or it's a lot messier than it needs to be. So we have added in our global class, we've added in a lot of different variables that we use. But we don't really need them. It's making things a lot more complicated, so we're going to try and fix that up, and we need to try and fix the order in layers of our head or target objects so that when they move up they appear, you can see them in the right place. So we're going to jump into the game and try and fix that. I have an idea of how I think it needs to be implemented, so we'll try and see if that works, and then depending on how long that takes we might move on to trying to get the target objects to spawn in at the right location, and then assuming that we fixed the first part, if they spawn in the right location then they will move up and you'll be able to see them in front of the different waves that they need to be in front of. So let's jump into our display here and see what we need to do. So this is where we left off not yesterday, on Friday I think. So I think it is. No, it's not, because I've been messing around with it. But anyway, I haven't changed too much. I've just been experimenting with things, and I changed, let's see, this. So let's change this to, I think this needs to be lower. I'll say that move target needs to be lower as well. I think that's it. So let's save that and jump into here and see if that works. So if this does work, it might actually need to be the upper target. Okay, maybe it needs to be the upper target. So let's go and say upper level transform value. So these are the values that I'm talking about we need to get rid of, because there's just way too many things that needs to be changed in order for the target object to appear in the right place and move up to the right place. So that's what we need to change and work on today. So I'll save that. Now I think if this does work, then it should be where we left off in the previous episode on Friday. So yeah, so this is where we left off, yes, on Friday. So let's go and try and fix this. The first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of a few values here. So in our move target we need to get rid of this. So we're going to get rid of this and take that out completely. And then we need to take the parameter out so that we don't have to pass anything in, but instead of using a value to go up to, we're going to move our target object from the start location up a certain amount of units. I think it's either 1 or 2 units, and then when it reaches that, we will bring it back down. Therefore we won't have to pass in a limit value at the top, so when it reaches that limit value it will come down. So that will save us from passing in this level value, but let's go and do that later. Instead we are going to try and figure out the different order in layers. So if we go into our global script here, we are going to work on these values. So here we have, I also added order in text into our variables, just so we know that what it's used for, because these are all very similar and it was getting kind of confusing. So you can add that in if you want, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So let's see, level order in layer. So we have currently got our wave at the back is currently sitting at order 0. The middle one is at 1, and the front one is at 2. So that's fine, because what is it? Let's see. So if we draw this on the screen, we have got our first wave like that. That is sitting at order, what is it? 1, I think? No, order 0. Then we have our next one, which is sitting at order 1, and then we have our next one here, the front one, which is at order 0. So these are all fine. Now what we want to do is we want to have the target objects appearing in the layers in between them, so one over there and one over there. but they will, when they get instantiated into the scene, they will appear in line with the waves. So they're going to spawn one over there, and one over here, and then they are going to move up to this layer here. So we kind of need to add in another 2 layers in between our waves. So for our what's this one called? The one at the back, the very big one, this one, we need to actually, let's start with the one at the front. The one in the front is fine because it's at the front, we don't really change anything. So we need to have another layer behind that with nothing on it, where we can spawn our target object. So that layer we will go and put at 1. Then we need to have the middle wave. So that middle wave needs to be on the layer behind where our current targets for the first layer will be shown. So that is going to be at level 2. Then let me just write this down so that we can go and code it in. So we need to have wave 1 at 0, then target object, it needs to be at 1, then we have wave 2 is going to be at 2, then 3, then 4, and 5, I think. So we have, technically it's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, just to save some time. So each wave is going to be every second layer, and each target is going to be every second layer. Does that make sense? Starting at 0 and 1. So let's go do that. Let's go and hide screen brush, and then we can jump into our code here quick. So the lower level order in layer will start at 1 because our targets will start at 1 and our waves will start at 0. So the middle level will be at 3. And actually it's going to be the opposite. This needs to be at the back one, the up one needs to be at 1, the middle one needs to be at 3, and then the lower, the one at the front needs to be at 5. Because I think, if I can remember correctly, they work in the opposite way. So you have your front layer, which is at 0, and then every number that is greater than that is going to be in front of it, and every number that is lower than 0 will be behind it. So obviously we want the bigger wave to be at the back, therefore having the upper level order in layer smaller, which means it's going to be behind the front one. So that should be fine, that should work fine. All you need to do is just swap the numbers. So let's go, and can't play it because we haven't really done anything. We need to change the values in here. Okay, so on our wave 7.5, which is the big one, we need to change this order to it needs to be, I've already forgotten, it needs to be at 0 to 4, I think. So we'll change that to 4. The middle one needs to be at 3. No. Okay, all of these layers are confusing. So the first one needs to be at level 0. Then we have our target object, which will be at, you know, let's forget about working with negative numbers. We are going to work with positive numbers. So the one in the front will start at 5, sorry. Then we have our target object in between the first level and the middle layer, that will be at 4. So then our middle wave layer will be at 3. Then we have our, what's it called, our wave, the back one, which will be at 5, I think, because we will have, this doesn't change for some reason. No, I'm getting confused. The wave one, the big one at the back, will be at 1, or will be at 0. So we have our front one at 5, then we have a target object at 4, then we have another wave, which is the middle one, at 3, then we have another target at 2, and then we have our wave at 1, so that should be 1. So that's I'm just overcomplicating it for some reason, so that's fine. So now that we have got these at 1, 3 and 5, we need to now have 1, 3 and 5. Now we need to have 2, 4 and 6 as our level, our target ordinate layer. So the lower one will be at it's going to be at 4. The middle one will be at 2, and the last one will be at -1. So we'll save that. Let's just play this and see what happens. I don't know if this is going to break the code, it probably will. But let's play that and see if anything weird happens. So we have our Santa's head, which seems to be working nicely. So it's popping up at the top of the screen, which means it's working on the upper level layer. So instantiate object, yeah, upper level layer, which is fine. So that is going to -1, and it is starting at okay, so it's starting at, where does it go? Starting at 1 and going up, no, it's starting at -1 and going up to the maximum target, or maximum transfer value of 1. So this is where it gets confusing, which is what we need to change. So let's go work on this. So when we instantiate an object, we don't want to pass in actually we need to pass in a starting value so that we don't have to pass in a top target, if that makes sense. Let me just move this a little bit. Okay, I probably shouldn't have done that. Give me 2 seconds while I sort out my camera. Okay, there we go. So camera's back. So now let's get back into this. So we are getting very confused here. Well, not really, but it's way too overcomplicated for what it needs to be. So we need to fix this in this video. So in our instantiate target object class, we need to pass in a starting position. So let's go and create that. In our global script here, instead of having let's just see what we're using as a starting value. So a level y value. So in our global class, let's go and change our lower level y value name to lower level starting y. So we are going to only have these values, so level starting y and upper level starting y. So those are the values that we're going to use. Then we can go and get rid of these values because we are not going to use them anymore. We don't need those because when we instantiate them at these positions, we are going to move them up. I think it is 2 units should be enough. So we can go and get rid of that because we won't need it, and we also don't need our levels. So let's go and save that. Now in our move target object up here, we can say transform.translate. Well, this line here is the one that moves it up, but instead of just moving it up constantly, we want to move it up to a certain amount of units. So let's go and get rid of our this if statement quick, because we no longer need to check if that condition is met. So we'll save that, and we can probably just comment that out quick. So let's go and go to Google quick and look this up. So move game object up 2 units in Unity. You probably can't see this, so I'll bring this over here somewhere. try that again. So in here, let's try and look this up. Move object. So how to move object in Unity with examples. So this is what we want to do, but we don't want it to just appear over there. We want it to actually move up nicely. So let's go and try that. Instead of having pop-up speed, let's get rid of this quick. We'll leave that layer there just in case it doesn't work, but instead of having all of this, let's go and see what it needs. So translate, vector 3 translation, move the transform in the direction and distance of travel. Okay, so let's go into Google here and see Unity translate. Let's go to the documentation and see translate, move object upwards in world space 1 unit per second. Okay, forward along its z-axis 1 unit per second. Moves an object forward along its axis 1 unit. Okay, move an object upwards in world space 1 unit per second. So we need to try and get it to move 2 units up, stop, and then move back down. Move Unity. Smoothly. There we go, let's try that. How to move objects in Unity. How to smoothly move an object in Unity. The most straightforward method of changing an object's position in Unity is set it directly, which is instantly moved. Move it to the new vector 3 position in the world. What is this? This works setting the... Okay, it sounds... Okay, this is the website we were just on that wasn't really helpful. So let's see. Move an object 2 units. So let's try that. I feel like we did this in a few episodes before this one. So that is going to move objects which way? Forward. So that's not what we want. We don't want it on the z-axis, we want it on the y-axis. So let's try 0. So for this we will set the why is that not working? Transform dot position dot x, because we don't want to change the x value. We only want to move it up 2 units. So let's save that and go back into the game and play that and see what kind of errors we get. Okay, so errors are coming from this here. Upper level starting one. We need to change that and that should be fine. Let's play this. And then we should get a few errors, obviously, because let's see what this says. Attempt transform position assign attempt for, so it's not valid. Input position infinity 250. What? So let's play this again quick and see if the target object actually gets spawned into our scene. So let's see, where's it at? So it is currently at 250, which is not what we want. So let's put that down to, let's have a look and see. Level Y value. Actually, I'm going to, where do we do this? Move target. Before we move this, I'm going to print out the position. So let's go and say debug.log transform.position. Let's save that, and then I'm going to, what are we going to do? I'm going to comment that out just so we can see what our current position is, and then from there we will try and figure out our error. So we are spawning this, and that is currently at -1. Okay, so the Y value is -1, which is good. So let's double click on that and zoom out. So that's at -1. The next one should also be at -1, and only the X value changes, so that's fine. So now we need to say up 2 units. Okay, we try and figure out why that's not moving up. Move the object forward 2 units every frame. Move the object forward 2 units. Okay, I think I know why this is happening. So this is happening because we are doing this, well, we're calling this from the update method, so this is technically happening every frame. So if we play this, you can see that, let's play it and see, click on one of our target objects, and you'll see that on the, yeah, so you can see that it's just going on forever, infinity, so that's not what we want. What we want is, we need to figure out a way to only call this once. So we could probably, let's try and how we're going to do this, we need to change our code completely here, because we don't want to call it from the update method, because that's just going to happen every frame. Let's try and call it from the start method. So in here, we'll cut that out and paste that in there, and then let's see what that does. So that's probably not going to work, because it's going to call the start method before the head is actually in the scene. So actually, wait. Wait, what's happening here? So let's see. First of all, let's pause this, and then just for now, let's go and disable those so we can see what's happening. So these are spawning. Something strange is happening. 1 minus 1. Okay, clearly that's not working, so that's not going to work. We need to try and figure out a different way to do that. So let's go get rid of that. We'll put it back to what we had, and then I think we need to figure this out. We might need to do this in another episode, because I might need to do some research into this. So let's go into Google here and say actually, let's see, start like this. Move the object forward 2 units every frame, which is not what we want. Move the object forward at 2 units per second, not what we want. Move the object forward at 2 units per second, not what we want. So these are all just completely not what we want. So we can get rid of that, because that's not going to work, or rather it's not going to work if we call it from an update method. So move target object up, transform the translate global.popup speed times the time.delta, which is going to move it up until it reaches a maximum value, which is what we don't want, because then we have to pass in the maximum value of each different layer. What we need to do is we need to go and do some research into this and figure it out in the next episode. So I'm going to stop this video over here, otherwise we're just going to go on and on forever and try and figure it out, which is probably boring. So I'm going to go do some research into it now, and then I will show you how to fix it in tomorrow's episode. So again, I apologize for this episode being boring, but this happens in game development. Things like this happen. You get stuck and you have to go and do some research into it. It probably is a very simple fix, but let's go and figure out what it is. So thanks for watching again. If you made it up to this part to the end. Thanks again, and I'll see you in tomorrow's episode. Goodbye.